Yes, unfortunately, the Elder Generous is gone, and now we've kind of got the knockoff Pyrocynical that hasn't really come out. It's meant to be silver. It's not quite. It's kind of a... It's whatever it is. Let's just move past it. Anyway, the topic of today's video is... The stats in Warhammer 2, they are not created equal. It's a blatant fact of life. You know, some factions have it way easier than other factions, and some sub-factions within those factions have it easier than the other sub-factions within those factions. So what this video is going to try and cover is the worst stats for each of the factions in the game. You know, so when you are picking up the game, you're thinking, I want to try the Empire, I want to try the Greenskins, I want to try the Dark Elves. Who should you really avoid for your first campaign? You know, who do you not want to play for your first one before you get a little bit more used to it? Ooh. These are going to be the factions that you don't want to try for your first campaign. The ones that you're going to want to avoid until you've got a little bit more comfortable and you are, you know, you enjoy hitting your head against the wall a little bit more than you do as you pick up the game. Without further ado, let's get into it. Before we get into this video, I just want to let you know, I did this with the help of the Discord. If you want to help me with some videos, I just pop little questions in, and then, you know, I get the feedback from everyone, and we kind of collaborate and work out what is the best answer to give it. They've helped me on a couple now, last week's, the week before that, this one. It's kind of becoming a theme, so if you want to take part, be sure to join the Discord, link in the description. That sounds epic. First up we have the High Elves, and it was almost a toss-up for me between Imric and Teclis, but Teclis just takes it all the way because Imric has these new dragon mechanics that make him just so much better than Teclis. First of all, Teclis starts in Lustria, which, as we all know, is the cesspit of hell. I hate this place. It's the worst place in the world. There's so many legendary lords there, and not many of them are going to be allies with you. You might be able to get the Lizardmen on side, maybe the High Elves that are far enough, but they're not going to help you. And across the sea, you can go to the desert and maybe try to find some friends there. But for the most part, it's going to be you, the Dark Elves, the Rats, pretty much everything, Vampire Coast. No one's going to really like you, so it's quite the hellscape. Of course, it doesn't help its capital's on the coastline, which means that, you know, those pirate invaders and the Chaos Invasion and all these people can come across the sea and just immediately get to you, whereas if you're inland, you've kind of got a bit of a buffer before they get to you. They have to, you know, get inland. As I mentioned, the High Elves aren't that far away, but they are far enough they are not going to help you in any wars, so you can, you know, you can ally with Tyrion all you want, but unless you confederate him, no one's going to come to help you against, you know, the thousands of other legendary lords that are roaming the jungles. Another thing that doesn't help is that Teclis is a very good lord, and at full power, he is formidable. He does amazing spell power, and he's a great leader for your army. But at the start, a magical spellcaster is pretty weak. You know, they don't have many spells, his combat prowess isn't amazing, he doesn't have a mount or anything like that, so he's kind of just a guy that stands there while the rest of your army does the majority of the work. So your first couple of turns before you unlock some spells are going to be pretty rough. But yes, that's why Teclis is probably the hardest High Elf to start. So the Dark Elves, the Druchii, the Edgelords. It's kind of a simple choice really, it's got to be Malice. As much as I hated starting as Marathi, it was only that bad because I'm kind of terrible. If you have Malice, it is way worse. So if you get rid of Hag Grief, you are completely alone. You have the military alliance with Nagrond, but that's not going to really affect you when you are on the literal opposite side of the map to him. He's not going to come help you with any wars, he'll probably just rope you into more. On top of this, if you get rid of Hag Grief, like I said, your only settlements are going to be in the bottom right hand corner of the map until you make your way up to the top left, which can take the entire game. What this means is, you are going to have a terribly rough time. You start right next to Snitch, and even though those guys, you know, they have the big face-off in the trailer, I really don't want to fight rats, especially rats whose specialty is being sneaky. It's not fun. If you don't want to fight the rats, you have to go against the Lizardmen and go into the desert, and even then, it's not really any better, because the climate preferences, once you get past all the jungle, are pretty diabolical, so you're going to have an awful time at it. If you do not decide to get rid of Hag Grief, then you have to fight on two fronts at the same time, which is near impossible with the early game economy of the Dark Elves. It's not too bad for Eltharion, because he has the, you know, the high elf economy to back him up, and it also helps that Torivres is near impregnable if you do it right. But for Malice, he just has two settlements that aren't too amazing, and he has to defend them both and attack on both fronts, and if you don't have all your economy pumping into attacking on one front, you're probably going to lose that front. And on top of all this, Malice also has the constant possession issue, where if he doesn't buy enough of these potions, then he faces severe debuffs from becoming too possessed, and if he buys too many potions, then he has no money, and it's just kind of, you've got to pick which one you don't want. Do you want money and demon possession, or do you want no demon possession and no money? It's not really the best, and yeah, that's why it's the most difficult. It's just got a lot of stuff going on that make him very hard to play. Now for the Lizardmen, this was one where I went back and forth between Tehenowin and the guy that won. Just spoilers, Tehenowin didn't win. I eventually did choose kroq-gar for the sole reason that he's so lonely. He starts at the bottom right, quite near to Malice actually, and he's in this own little corner, and once he gets out of that corner, he can't really do too much. He has the big wall of mountains and wasteland to the north that he can't really get past. He has mountains to the west that have the rats and the orcs, and it's not too much of a fun time there either, because it takes so damn long to get past, especially when you get ambushed by the Skaven. And being in this area of the map, of course, he has no friends. He doesn't have Mazdamundi near him, he doesn't have Tehenowin, he does Tic-Tac-Toe, but it's pretty far away at the other side of the desert. He doesn't have Nakai, he doesn't have anyone. He's completely alone. But the real thing that made me choose kroq-gar over Tehenowin is campaign mechanics. Kroq-gar has basically none. He gets, you know, less upkeep for all of his units, and that's pretty good, but when you have nothing else fighting for you, you are just basically a basic faction. Whereas to Henowin, even though he does have, you know, the very, very, very difficult start of, you know, only being able to use certain units and just skipping out on Saurus, you can skip out on Saurus and have a pretty decent army comp, especially at the beginning. Skin cohorts, they're not as bad as you think, especially if you use all the ranged power that you can. And when he gets over those mechanics, there's a huge power spike. So it kind of evens out where kroq-gar probably has the easier actual start, whereas if you're playing Henowin, eventually it is going to get a lot easier, and, you know, kroq-gar is going to kind of fall to the wayside. And it also helps that Henowin starts with every single other lizard in the game backing him up, so, you know, that's pretty great. Now, for the Skaven, I decided to go with Tretch Craventail, pretty much because of his starting location, and because, as I mentioned with kroq-gar, he doesn't really have any mechanics. Now, while allies don't really mean much to the Skaven, it's starting nowhere near any rats whatsoever, apart from the ones that attack Malekith, is pretty dire. Having no allies in between the Dark Elves and the High Elves, it's kind of like being stood in no man's land when both sides are chucking artillery. It's just a no-go. You either have to get an alliance with one of them, pretty much always the Dark Elves, if you're incredibly lucky, and help them fight the High Elves, or you have to have both of them attack you at once, in which case you are 100% dead. As I mentioned before, he also has no mechanics that help give him an edge. He doesn't have any workshop, he doesn't have any shady dealings, his plagues aren't even anywhere near as good as Lord Skrolk's. He's just very vanilla. I mean, I know we did get him in a free LC, if I'm remembering that correctly, and that's why he's not too advanced, but it would be nice to see him get a little bit of a buff, so, you know, he has some interesting mechanics that set him apart and make him just a little bit more interesting and better to play. Now, the same can be said for Queek. In fact, the game actually says that Queek is a much harder start than Tretch, but ultimately, I went for Tretch just because the starting location, that close to High Elves, it's a no-go. I know that Queek has to deal with the Dwarves, but he gets a lot of bonuses when he's fighting against them and the Greenskins, so he manages it a little bit better, in my opinion. In my opinion. And this is all, of course, from the help of the Discord, so get mad at them, not me. I'm shifting blame. Shift blame. It's the Discord's fault, it's not me. I'm just doing what they say. I have my family, please. Now, moving on to Warhammer 2 DLC races, we have the Vampire Coast, and between me and the Discord, it was kind of a toss-up for Sartosa or the Drowned, and ultimately I decided to choose the Drowned. Now, they are quite lonely, but for the Vampire Coast, it doesn't really matter. They don't really focus on allies too much. It's, you know, just raid and plunder wherever you can to make as much money as possible. It doesn't help that her starting location, she is completely surrounded by hostiles. If I'm counting correctly, she has about 6 or 7 people that can become potential hostiles on her doorstep, which is a little bit much. The starting war versus the Blue Vipers is also incredibly painful, since they have, you know, physical resistance up the wazoo, and they can just spawn Savage Orcs over and over and over again. It's incredibly difficult to fight. Now, Sartosa slightly won out on this because they have, you know, the Sartosa militia units, which are excellent for the early and mid game, and they also have increased raiding income, so even if they're not taking settlements, they can be making a huge amount of money from raiding and sacking and all these kind of things. The Drowned, they have none of that. The faction ability of reducing the upkeep and recruit cost of Mongols and Sirens isn't going to come in useful until you get to the point where you can recruit those guys, and if you can't even get past the first couple of turns, then you're never going to be able to recruit them, so her abilities are basically useless, and let's be honest, those units, they're not the best in the roster anyway, so when you do get to use them, they're not going to be amazing. Another thing that doesn't help it is they're starting to say it's not even a capital, so it severely limits the income and infrastructure that you can build in there, and it's just going to be an extremely slow and painful start. Now, our final Warhammer 2 race is the Tomb Kings, and some people were saying that it could be Arkan the Black, but I ultimately went for the Exiles and Heck because they are so lonely and exiled. They start with no allies in sight, pretty much all enemies completely surrounding them. You know, everywhere they look, they have an enemy. They have the rats, they have the Dark Elves, they have the Beastmen, they have the other Dark Elves, they have the Lizardmen to the south. No one is going to particularly like them, so it's going to be a very rough start if everyone's coming at you from all angles. That diplomatic penalty they get with Dark Elves when you are surrounded by Dark Elves is a tremendous yike. On all of the other Tomb Kings starting in the desert, nowhere near to you, that's going to be extremely painful because, you know, if you ever want to get any Confederation, you know, get some quick land, you're going to have to send someone to the opposite side of the world, and even if you do it, they're the opposite side of the world, so they can't help your capital faction. Habitable lands are also something that's quite hard to come by. Yes, they have the climate preference of mountains, but they can only go to the north and invade the rats, and then to get all the way to the desert, they're going to have to either just sail all the way over there, or they're going to have to go through unsuitable and uninhabitable lands, which is a pain in the ass. The pyramids that are also needed by the Tomb Kings to carry a lot of the factions, these pyramids can really give some incredible buffs to your faction, so if you can't get any of these pyramids because they're all in the desert and you can't make your way over there, that's going to be a huge detriment and slow you down a lot in the campaign. And a final thing, the starting settlement is again not a capital settlement, it's not a major settlement, so it's going to be harder to defend, not bring in as much money, and not have as much room for infrastructure unless you start invading immediately on turn 1, which, you know, you can do anyway, but it still just delays everything by a little bit. Now, coming into Warhammer 1, we of course have everyone's favourite, the Empire. And is it even a question? It's Marcus Wolfhard. It clearly is. You know, Balthazar Gelt, he is basically the same as Karl Franz, but, you know, starts a little bit off to the side. It's possibly a little bit harder, possibly a little bit easier, and I had enough time to play around with both of them, but I didn't really need to because, you know, Cal starts in a pretty good place, and Volkmar the Grim starts in the exact same place, but, you know, is a worse lord. So it's clearly Marcus Wolfhard. He starts in Lustria. Need I say any more? The hostility mechanic from the Vortex campaign that carries over into Mortal Empires, it causes an extreme amount of hassle. Expanding and fighting at all will cause hostility to increase and send armies to attack your lands. So every single move you make that will help progress your faction and make it better will be harming your faction because it will send armies. Yes, if you're really good, you can farm these armies for XP. But as I said, if you're starting out and you just want to try the Empire for the first time, this is going to be like bashing your head against the wall. And the wall is a tide of Lizardmen. You don't want to do that, they've got rock hard abs. On top of this, it also hurts your public order and makes any enemy you face stronger. Yes, any enemy you are going against gets increased leadership, weapon strength, and you get minus public order. It's painful. The Emperor's Mandate as well. I know you're never going to be friends with the Lizardmen, but you could just try and keep them off your back. But the further you progress that Emperor's Mandate, you know, that thing that you meant to do for progressing the campaign, yeah, that's going to hurt you because it's going to ruin your diplomatic relations with them totally and cause them all to come to war with you. And in Lustria, all the Lizardmen, that's a lot of dudes. On the topic of friends, he has none. You know, he has the High Elves maybe to the north. The closest ones that are actually viable are the New World colonies. And even then, they're pretty pointless. There's no point making a real alliance with them, because they'll just get declared war on by the Lizardmen and all sorts and just drag you into wars. So yeah, you're pretty much alone, and everyone's coming for you. It's great. Now, for the vampire counts, I of course had to go with Heinrich Kemmler of the Barrow Legion. Now, he's not miles away from the other vampire counts, so you know if you want to ally with them, you can get help. There is also the coastal faction. Oh my god, I forgot the name. I can't remember. I'm going to put it on screen now. It's the ones that have the yellow symbol thing. I cannot remember it. But yes, you have those nearby, so you do actually have some allies. But the problem is, Vlad and Manny have the easiest starts for the vampire counts by a mile. They're right next door to each other, so they can either ally up or, you know, they can take each other over in like a couple of turns. While they do start very close to the Empire and the Dwarves, they're not that close that there's going to be an immediate, you know, early game war. Whereas the Barrow Legion, they start with, you know, Bretonnia here, Barrow Legion here, Empire here. So if these two guys decide to go in, yeah, there ain't much you can do about it. Whereas, you know, Vlad and Manny, they can just sit off in Sylvania and just keep to themselves until they're ready to attack the Empire. And to be honest, that's the only reason that Heinrich is considered the worst. It's not because he's actually that bad, because he isn't, even though he's probably the least powerful lord in the early game. It's just because the other two starts are just so easy. You know, they're better fighters, they have better starts, access to better lands and less defended lands, and, you know, actual vampire already taken lands, so you don't have to pre-corrupt them before you go and invade, which is incredible. On top of all this, he is on the Bretonnia Ulthuan coast, or pretty close to it, so if the High Elves ever decide to come and knock in, that's also going to be incredibly painful for you. But yes, he's not actually that bad, he's just the worst of the three starting locations. Now, for the Dwarves, it's Belegar. Do I really need to explain why it's Belegar? You know, the other two places are basically next door to all of the other Dwarves, who will be more than happy to confederate with you with basically no input on your part. Ungrim might have some useless effects, you know, just upgrading Slayers, they aren't particularly useful, and they're not going to carry you into the end game, and you're not really going to unlock them in the early game, but Belegar starts with plus 50% to his upkeep for literally everything until he retakes Karak 8 Peaks. Now, Dwarf upkeep in the early game is incredibly painful. Their units are stupidly expensive. Yes, when you get to the late game, Dwarves can be some of the richest factions in the game, but in the early game, you have no money because your upkeep is through the roof. Adding 50% to this is crazy. It is incredibly painful. It causes you to have to, you know, micromanage your armies and every single turn, but counting coins, you know, looking under the seats for any pound coins that could have slipped down there. You need to save money like a madman and get as many trade deals and everything. It's just painful. Alright, that's what I'm trying to say. It's painful, it's expensive. Now, his starting location isn't actually near to too many enemies. You know, Skarsnik's kind of up to the top. We'll talk about him in a minute. And the Stein War is only a very meager orc faction, so it's not that much of a big deal. But the problem is, the journey to get to Karak 8 Peaks to make yourself into a viable faction is extremely lengthy. If you don't want to invade, you know, the border princes and, you know, face that unsuitable and uninhabitable climate, then you're going to have to, you know, hip-hop through the mountains with a Karag Hern or whatever their name is, the yellow ones, and then, you know, to Zufbar and down through the regular dwarves to Karak 8 Peaks. And in all that time, you, of course, need to make sure that no one else takes Karak 8 Peaks, because if they do, that can severely screw you over. So you have to make this arduous journey while praying that no one takes it before you, and also, you know, try not to let your only lands that are keeping you alive fall. So it's a real fun time. I'd highly recommend it to try at least once. But yes, he's definitely the most easy to off by a mile. Now, coming to the Greenskins, it's obviously Skarsnik. As I said, this guy, he's basically Belegar, but for the Greenskins. And I think he possibly has it a little bit worse. It might be a little bit different now that the big Greenskin updates had time to come into effect. But he's still the worst Greenskin by a mile. Now, he has basically the same deal as Belegar, but as I said, I think it's possibly worse. Now, the effect that Skarsnik gets until he gets to Karak 8 Peaks is he cannot recruit any Orc units. And when you're playing as the Greenskins, you know, you can do the Goblin build. You can just, you know, especially with the new DLC, you can do Goblins, you can do the new Rollers, you can do all sorts of stuff like that. Having no orc units whatsoever is detrimental because they are, you know, the toughest units. They are the strongest melee fighters, and they generally just do the most damage out of all your units. So not being able to use them until you take this settlement that is even further away than it is for Belgar, yeah, that's incredibly painful, and please no. Now, thankfully, it doesn't affect the economy like it does for the Dwarves, but it doesn't really matter because the Greenskin economy is so much weaker than the Dwarf one that this debuff is, as I said, I think it's worse than the upkeep debuff that Belgar gets, because it just prevents him from getting the units at all. Like when you Belgar, you know, you could save up money and you could buy the expensive units. Of course, you'd be paying a lot of money for them, but with Skarsnik, you can't get them at all, which is why I think he's worse. Doesn't help that he's also surrounded by good factions. You know, he has the Empire just to the north, Bretonnians over there, Dwarves pretty much everywhere. It's not going to be an easy ride for you whatsoever. And the journey to get there, similar to Belgar, if you don't want to just, you know, take on the border princes and every single one, you're going to have to hip-hop through the mountains, but this time you have to fight all of those dwarf clans that you come into contact with, whilst also not losing your home region to, you know, the Empire, the Bretonnians, the Dwarves. It's real tough. Skarsnik is by far the hardest Greenskin, ain't even a question. Now finally we come to the Warhammer 1 DLC races. First off, we have Norsca, and I went for Throg. These two guys, they're very, very similar. There wasn't much in this, and I know it might seem like I'm just going off what the game says, but the game is right sometimes, okay? It says that Throg's hard and that Wulfric is normal. It's correct. Throg is harder. Now, he starts near a dwarf faction that has control of an entire region, which means that if you decide to go to war with them, which you are probably going to because it's a good region to take, that's going to be quite tough. Dwarves, you know, they're a great defensive faction. Playing on defense is what they do best, if you ask me. They can just sit there, shoot at you, and there's not really much you can do about it. Even if you get, you know, a massive warmouth come at them, they're just going to set on fire and shoot it a million times and it'll die. As well as this, the units that his faction affect are not really available until a little bit later, and they're quite elite and quite expensive, so it might take you quite a while to get a hold of them. So, you know, when you're in the early game, it's not really going to be any use to you. Whereas for Wulfric, you know, he upgrades Marauders and stuff, and that's really amazing because that'll help you because that's going to be the meat of your early game army. And finally, he starts in a minor settlement. That never really helps. And also I noticed that he cannot attack on turn 1. Most factions in the game, they're starting war, they can attack turn 1, make some progress, make some money. Throg can't do that. His starting war, it's just out of reach for him to be able to attack, and the guy's starting his settlement, so it's going to be a tougher fight, and it's a fight that you have to do on turn 2, which is already putting you behind. It's like if on Civ, you know, when you choose to not settle on turn 1, you're just behind for the rest of the early game, pretty much. Now, for Bretonnia, I of course went for Rapunz de Lioness. Apologise for my pronunciation, it's terrible, I failed French. Now, pretty much the only reason that it's her is because she starts away from the pack. Especially with Grom's new start, you know, you'd think Alberic, he's pretty tough. You know, he's got massive Orcal right next to him. He's also got the vampires attacking him. He's got a lot of stuff that he needs to deal with. But Rapunz just starts so totally alone that it's pretty painful for her more than it is for anyone else. Now, I'm not saying that she's bad. I'm not saying that she is ridiculously hard, because she's not. In comparison to the others, this is probably one of the closest fights that we've had, because they're all pretty much on the same level. It's just that she starts far away, and all three of them start on the mainland right next to each other with plentiful resources and peasant farms and all sorts of things like that. Now, she does start in the desert, and there are a few minor Bretonnian factions there, so that's good. She can get a few confederations, a few allies. That's very nice. But again, it is nothing compared to Civ3. Can you see what I'm trying to say here? She's not that bad, she's just not that good. She does also start in close proximity to Arkan the Black, so if you don't take him out or keep him at bay early on, he probably will start to cause you a bit of trouble, because he can be pretty nasty when he wants to be. And of course, as I keep saying, having a minor settlement as your starting settlement isn't great. It puts you behind economically, infrastructurally, and other LY words. It's not the best. It's not detrimental, but it's not the best. Now, our last 3 DLC races, the Wood Elves, the Beastmen, and the Warriors of Chaos, they pretty much start in the same location. I know Durthu and Orion start in technically different spaces, but come on, man. One is here, and one is here. They start in the same place, so that basically comes down to, you know, whether you want to be a tree man or whether you want to have rangers. Personally, I would probably say that Durthu is the worst off, even though he is a tree man himself and is very strong and, you know, starts with some good units. His tree man effects, you know, to improve the units, they're not going to come into effect until you unlock those units, which will take a hell of a lot longer than it will for Orion, who, you know, just upgrades all his range units and stuff like that. For the Beastmen, they again have only one location and they're not the best anyway, but, you know, it's probably Morga because his effects are pretty dog shit. They don't really do anything. So yeah, I'm just editing the video right now, and it turns out that they do actually have 3 different starts, but Morga's the worst one anyway, so technically I'm saying it is true, but they do have different starting locations. Whoops. And finally, the Warriors of Chaos. They just have the one starting location, and it sucks 1,000 farts. It's not the best. Now, Sigvald is everyone says he's the worst. You know, he's just terrible. He has the worst effects. They are totally useless, and he's the worst fighter out of all 3, so he's definitely the worst star out of all the Warriors of Chaos. But yes, that ends the list. Sorry I rattled off those last 3. There's just not really much to say, because they are really that similar. Yes, thank you for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you agree with my decisions or the Discord's decisions, it wasn't me, it was the Discord. They have my family, it was them. Please agree with their decisions. Please, please. Thank you. But if you do agree with the Discord decision, be sure to leave this video a like and leave a comment down below saying, oh, I agree, that guy is really hard. If you think that someone else is harder, if you think that, Grimgor, he's really tough, or, maybe Ungrim, you have a lot of trouble with him, please do leave a comment about that. I would love to hear about it. I always enjoy a little healthy debate. That's always fun. But no, seriously, it does help us learn and help us think, you know what, that guy is pretty tough. Maybe I'll, give him a try, see how tough he is. It's just interesting to find out what everyone thinks. If you want to see more Total War Warhammer 2 videos, we have the Dark Elf Guide Part 2 coming on Friday, and the Warriors of Chaos Guide coming soon, TM, and then we've got the Wood Elves and the Beastmen left, and then hopefully Warhammer 3. I have a bunch of ideas of what I can do while I'm waiting for Warhammer 3, so be sure to stay subscribed and stay tuned for that. Going to try and start doing some semi-regular streams. I'll let you know a specific day when I figure it out. Be sure to join the Discord because they'll be the first to know. But yes, that is all from the 10 o'clock newsroom. I've been your boy, COLONELDAMNEDERS, and I will see you in the next update. Goodbye.